Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about how Freud found the method to interpret dreams and how it's related to his studies in hysteria. So when Freud first started treating hysterical patients, him and Joseph Breuer, they based their method on a method found by Charcot, which was they used to hypnotize the patients, and then under hypnosis they would ask the patients to bring out their repressed memories which they couldn't do when they were conscious. So once the patient brought out a repressed memory, the moment he reacted to it, the symptom would go away. Because what hysteria is if a thought is repressed within you, then the excitation that it creates, it does not find a direct outlet because it does not allow you to think it. So it finds its outlet in other symptoms. So, for example, there was a woman who her child was on the deathbed, and while the child was about to die, it read a prayer in English. This was a German woman and she mostly spoke German. She knew a little bit of English. But once her child died, the anxiety that caused was so severe that she repressed the memory. And so, but from that day onwards, she could not speak in German anymore. Every time she spoke in English. And even if you gave her a German text to read, when she read it, she would read an English translation of it because her brain was only processing it in English. So under therapy, Freud started getting her memories out, and slowly she uncovered the memory, and once she realized the connection, the symptom immediately went away. She started crying and she reacted to it, and once the reaction was done, the symptom immediately went away and she could speak in German fine again. So what this is basically the excitation needs to find an outlet. Now if you don't let it come through the direct thought, it finds an outlet in the symptom. So they found whenever under hypnosis they uncovered the thought, it would help cure the symptom. But they were finding this a little difficult because not all patients are equally treatable by hypnosis, because some patients simply don't go under hypnosis. Some find a lot of resistance. Even under hypnosis they refuse to answer your questions, or they just want to talk about a certain thing, and no matter how much you try and correct them, it doesn't happen. So the way Freud found a way around it is he used to do a method called free association. So he would ask you to start talking about anything, literally any topic in the world, and just let your mind go and don't correct yourself, don't censor yourself. Whatever comes to your brain, just keep talking. And according to him, within the next 10-20 minutes or maximum half an hour, your mind automatically directs itself to the point where there is a repressed memory. And the second you stop talking and you say, I don't have anything to say anymore, that is the point at which there is something being repressed, because otherwise there are infinite associations in your brain and you can never actually run out of things to say. So in this way, and then he had a second method where if a patient still didn't feel that she could come up with anything, so he would ask them to close their eyes and he would tell them that when I put my finger on your forehead, when you feel the pressure on your forehead, you will get an idea, or you will get a word or any concept, maybe even a picture, and no matter how stupid or unrelated or how absurd it seems, just tell me what it is. And inevitably, according to him, 100% of the time it was related to the direction in which they were supposed to be going in, and so it would help them uncover the memory. So the way he explained it is your repressed memory forms the basis of your anxiety, but since it's repressed, it doesn't come out directly, and your brain covers it up with a lot of other memories associated very loosely but still associated to each other. And so he called it a pile of rubbish. So this is your repressed memory, and then there are a lot of memories, and you cannot reach the repressed memory until you clear out the other memories first. So you have to go start at the beginning, and if you ask the patient, she will logically go chronologically backwards. She will start at the most recent memory and she will go backwards in a straight line. Unconsciously, this is not a conscious effort, and the memories will lead to each other all the way back to the repressed memory. This takes a couple of months, sometimes even years, depending on how deep the repression is. And the moment the repressed memory is out into the open, the patient reacts by crying or shock or fear or disgust, depending on what the memory is, and immediately that cures the symptom and it never returns again. So that was how he used to cure the hysterical patients, and this was Freud's own method. This was not by Breuer or by anyone else. This only Freud used to use it. One of his patients, she was prone to hallucinations because of hysteria, and she said that when I have hallucinations, I find the same symptoms in those hallucinations as I do when I'm dreaming at night. So she said, so what had happened is she used to be scared of any snake-like object. Any snake or snake-like object, she used to pass out, she used to have hallucinations, and her hysterical symptoms would come in very vigorous forms. So under therapy, they found out that in her childhood she had been molested, and so the snake was representative of the penis, which was the cause of her trauma in her childhood. And so it was, whenever she saw a phallic symbol or any form of a snake-like object, she would react to it with the original disgust which was meant for her childhood memory. So even in her dreams at night, whenever she saw anything like a candlestick or a pencil or any phallic object, she would react to it in exactly the same way as she reacted to her hysterical symptoms in the daytime when she was conscious. So she told this to Freud, like, I'm seeing the same symbols that are in my hysteria when I'm sleeping. Even when I'm not hysteric, when I'm just sleeping normally in a normal dream, I see the same thing. So that set Freud thinking, and he thought, okay, maybe there's a connection, maybe the brain works the same way with both hysteria and with dreams. So his logic to that was, in hysteria, your brain's resistance reduces. So it's not able to repress the memory completely, which is why it finds its outlet in these different symptoms. And even when you're sleeping, your brain's resistance reduces, so maybe the same thing happens again. And instead of showing the repressed memory directly, they show it through in symbolic form in your dreams. So he started applying this to his dreams, his own dreams first, because he used to always test these things on himself first. And he started finding that all his dreams had a latent meaning and a manifest meaning. So the manifest meaning is what you can see, what you can, the obvious content of the dream, which is very like literal. So that is the manifest content, and then the latent content is the idea or the concept behind it, which is being distorted and censored and then shown to you only in the symbolic form. So he used to call it latent content and manifest content. He found that even the most simplest dreams, whether they're nightmares, whether they're happy dreams, even if they're just 10 seconds long, even if they're an extremely long series of dreams, all of them had a coherent concept behind it, but they never showed them in original form. They were always distorted. You cannot have a literal dream. It's impossible. Your dream always contains something that you have experienced within the past day as your manifest content. So that is what you will be seeing, but that always represents a wish that you had in your childhood. So the before the age of puberty is this limit Freud said to this. So in your prepubescent stages, whatever wishes you've had which were not allowed full expression, or because of anxiety or because of society which you repressed, if that stayed in your brain and was powerful enough to warrant this sort of attention, then later if you're walking past a shop and you see a completely insignificant board, your mind, you might forget it yourself, but your mind retains that memory, and that night when you dream, that board will play a part in your dream, but that board actually holds no significance on its own. It will be representative of something in his childhood which has found an association with it. So every dream he found was a wish fulfillment of a childhood wish, not a wish that you have in your adult life, but in your prepubescent stages a wish. And because it's a child's wish, these are usually wishes which as adults we would not appreciate. So for example, a dream in which you see someone dying, it some people interpret it to mean something wrong will happen to that person, or you don't like that person, but what it actually means is at some point in your childhood you wish that person to be absent, because as a child you don't differentiate between a person being dead or a person going away. When your dog dies, they say your dog went away to a farm. It's the same thing to you, the dog is not around. So that same symbolism, when you're dreaming, your dream uses your childhood symbolism. So it shows the person as dead when all you actually want to say is, I don't want that person here, or in this situation I would not appreciate that person being here, I don't want him around me. So in your dream it would show him as dying, or you killing him, or he dead already. So that is just a fulfillment of your wish that I don't want that person to be around. So he started interpreting all these dreams in this way, and this led to his very famous work, Interpretation of Dreams. And so because of that patient, that is how he made the transition from hysterical patients to interpretation of dreams, and got us a lot of insight into how our brain works.